Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Karen, and in this video I am going to be talking about my favorite standalone book. So when I was younger, I used to read a lot of book series, but I've realized in the last couple of years, I have really been gravitating towards standalone books. The reason why I love standalone books so much more than book series is because when a writer does a standalone book well, it's just this like little bit of perfection. You don't have all of this extra stuff to go along with it. Sometimes you read books that are part of a series and they're fantastic, but then you read another book in that series and they suck. For me, the beauty of standalones is that you have one chance to enamor the reader, one chance to make them fall in love with your characters and with your story. And if a writer can do that for me, then I am completely blown away. Now, I do want to say before I start talking about the books that they are in no way in a hierarchical order. I love all of these books equally for different reasons. I do think that some are better written than others, or some are more entertaining than others. But for the purpose of this video, I just want to present to you guys my favorite, because there are a lot of different stories in here, a lot of different genres, and I don't want to count them from like 1 to 10, from most favorite to least favorite, or anything like that. I really love all of these books. So the first one that I am going to be talking about is the only young adult novel in this list, and that is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I cannot believe that a Rainbow Rowell book has made it into one of my favorites videos, because I have tried reading her stuff a lot before and I never match well with her. I don't like her characters. I always find that she's trying way too hard to be relatable and quirky. If you don't know what Carry On is about, it's a book that is perfect for all Harry Potter fans because it is based on Harry Potter fan fiction. So in Carry On, you follow this wizard called Simon Snow. He is the worst chosen one that has ever been chosen, and he goes to a magical school like Hogwarts. He has a vampire roommate who he supposedly hates, but he's actually in love with. It brings me so much joy, and I think that if you're a fan of Harry Potter and you grew up reading Harry Potter, then you are really going to enjoy reading this because it's so clear how Rainbow Rowell really honors the series. If you especially are a fan of Harry Potter and the Draco Malfoy ship, I am not one of those. That was not something that I was thinking about when I was reading the books, but I know that there is this huge online community that loves the idea of Harry and Draco together and thinks that they would have been really wonderful. If you love that idea, then you are going to fall head over heels in love with Carry On, because a relationship between Simon and his roommate Bass is so beautiful, so cute, and it has a happy ending, which is really something that we really need in the LGBT community. So Carry On is absolutely wonderful, and it's one of my favorite young adult novels. Then I want to talk about my two favorite classics. The first being North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is just perfection in a book for me. This is a Victorian novel that follows Margaret Hale. She is a 19-year-old originally from the South, and she moves to the North to a town called Milton, and there she really grows up as a person and she really becomes this strong, admirable woman. I absolutely love this book because Elizabeth Gaskell's writing, even though it's Victorian, is so easy to read. This is one of the easiest classics that I have ever read. The story is fantastic, the characters are wonderful, the romance is beautiful. If you love Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, then this is a book for you. The love story between Margaret Hale and Mr. Thornton is just wonderful. You also get a lot in here that you don't really get in a lot of other Victorian novels. For example, there is fantastic social criticism in here about how workers are treated, about how industry towns work. There's also a great mother-son relationship that is unusual for a Victorian book. You don't really get a lot of mother-son relationships that are really close, but you do get a lot of that in here. If you are looking for a Victorian classic to read, then this is my number one recommendation. Then on to my favorite classic pretty much ever. That is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I absolutely adore this book because this is, in my opinion, a perfect example of a perfect book. I think The Great Gatsby is just, it has no flaws in my opinion, and I know that a lot of people may disagree with me, but I think it's just wonderful. You probably know what this book is about already because it makes its way to a lot of school reading lists. But if you are not familiar, this is a 1920s novel that takes place, obviously, in the 1920s. It's an American classic and it follows Nick Carraway, who lives next to a very mysterious figure called Jay Gatsby. Jay Gatsby throws this incredible parties at his mansion and nobody really knows who he is or where he comes from, and he is connected to Nick in an unexpected way. This book criticizes the American dream. It criticizes the wealthy. It talks about obsession, about love, about what it means to really love a person, how far you are willing to go for a person. And every time I read this book, and I've read it quite a couple times, I am always so destroyed at the end. When the ending comes, I cannot help but cry. I feel so close to these characters. I hate them, I love them, I am them, and I just think it's fantastic. It's also one of the books that has the most beautiful, stunning prose that you will ever find. So if you have not read The Great Gatsby by now, what are you doing with your life? You need to read it. Then I cannot have a favorites video without mentioning the wonderful, the amazing, the epic Sarah Waters. She just writes the most amazing stories, and especially the LGBT stories. Being LGBT herself, Sarah Waters is a lesbian. She understands that lesbian characters are actually people and they're not just lesbians. Fingersmith, in my opinion, is her masterpiece. This is the book that I think she will go down in history for because it's just amazing. It's quite a chunky book, but my God, you are not going to feel that at all because the story is so heavy and dramatic and wonderful. The love story is great. It's surprising. It has the biggest, most shocking twist that I have ever read, and it's just wonderful. If you don't know what Fingersmith is about, it's a historical novel that takes place in Victorian England. It follows a character by the name of Sue. She was orphaned at birth, so she has really grown up in the low world of Victorian England. She has grown up amongst fingersmiths, so thieves basically. And one day somebody comes to her home with a proposition that seems too good to pass. I have never heard anybody say, oh well yeah, I read Fingersmith by Sarah Waters and it was okay. I don't think that it's possible to read this book and say it was okay. The next book that I want to talk about is A Lie Between Oceans. This is a historical novel that takes place in Australia. It follows a couple that really want to start a family but unfortunately cannot have their own children. One day they see a boat with a baby inside of it, and instead of turning that baby into the authorities, they decide to keep it. And you follow their lives and the repercussions of them making this decision. This is a book that tore my heart away. It's not a book that is going to surprise you a lot. I kind of could see where the story was going. I could kind of see the ending coming from a mile away, but it still broke my heart. Out of all of these books, the one that is perfect if you want to have a good cry, then you should definitely pick up The Lie Between Oceans. It is beautifully written. It was made into a film for a reason. I think that the film is wonderful as well, and it's just a stunning book. Next is A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Oseki. This book blew me away. You follow two different characters, one who is a 14-year-old, I believe, by the name of Nao. She lives in Japan, and a writer named Ruth. They connect because Ruth one day is walking along the beach and she sees a Hello Kitty lunchbox that inside has this diary written by Nao. This is kind of a message in a bottle story, but it is so much more than that. It is one of the books that has magical realism throughout in little ways, but that just elevates it so much. It's a fantastic book. It's beautifully written. It's about so much more than meets the eye. Really, this book It's an exploration of the relationship between a writer and a reader, what that means, what it means to connect to someone that you've never seen before, that you've never met, that you've never actually talked to, but that you feel that you know because you have read their words. It makes you think about time, about life, about humanity, about religion, and it's just epic. It's so wonderful. Once I was done, my jaw was on the floor. I was so deeply moved by it and incredibly impressed by it. So the penultimate book is The Incarnations by Susan Barker. This is a book that follows a taxi driver in China who starts getting mysterious letters from someone inside his taxi. This person is saying that they're meant to be because they are incarnations that have existed throughout time. And the reason why I love this book so much is because you have chapters that are about these past lives. And those chapters almost read like short stories, but they're so incredible. They're dark, they're horrific sometimes, they're beautiful other times. And this really is a journey of a book, and one that really took my breath away because of its writing, because of its story, because of the different settings that Susan Barker decided to place this Incarnations in. And finally, it wouldn't be a 2017 favorites video without Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. This is everything. This is one of my favorite books of this year. It is fantastic. It is beautiful. It is the best book that I have ever read on bisexuality, and the prose is just fantastic. Not many people will gel with this book when they first pick it up because of how it's written. The prose is incredibly chaotic and maddening at times, but that's the reason why I love it. I have highlighted and written and underlined so many things in this book because this book is pure love, it's pure beauty, and I could talk about it endlessly because it's so gorgeous. If you don't know what this is about, it follows 17-year-old Elio. During a summer in the 1980s, he is staying at his parents' villa for the summer, and a student comes to work with his dad, who is 24, and Elio falls head over heels in love with him. This is a book about exploring sexuality, about finding a human connection. It's about love, it's about LGBT representation, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. The star of this book really is Andre Aciman's prose. He writes in a way that I would love to write. I would love to read 800 books with this type of prose. It's just so gorgeous, and I'm blown away by it every time I read it, and I'm in my third reading of this, so I think that's saying a lot. Another thing that this book does brilliantly is express desire. I have never read a book that expresses desire in such a relatable, real way. You feel like you are Elio because you spend pretty much 99% of this book inside Elio's head. And like I said, that's not something for everybody, but for me, it really works, and I just think this is a masterpiece. So yeah, those are my favorite standalones as of right now. Tell me please if you have read some of these. What are some of your favorite standalones? I would love to know. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye!